second card, hopefully where you guys can see while you're speaking, try to get your attention and let you know you have 30 seconds left on your 2 minutes. All right, and then they'll ring this obnoxious cowbell to let you know that you're out of time. The questions were developed tonight were determined by the Journal-Patriot and their new staff, and they received public input. They received quite a bit of public input, I understand, as to what questions would be asked of the candidates. So they worked hard on that. We would ask that you hold your applause for each candidate and each statement. I know that each of you have an interest here, but this is a information thing, not a pep rally or cheering sport. So we're going to, that way we can move on with the time pretty well, hopefully. So if you will, hold your applause after each candidate speaks. And there will be no questions from the audience. We have 5 questions from, again, that was developed by the Journal-Patriot staff from public input, and each question will be asked the same question of each candidate for each race. Okay? All right. Everybody good? Our timer is here now. So we will begin with opening statements for the town of Wilkesboro, town council candidates. And in alphabetical order, that starts with Ms. Archibald. Your time begins now.
Thank you, Joel, for organizing this event today and helping facilitate it. I think it's a good way for people to get to know the candidates a little better. Like everyone else here, I'm Nellie Archibald, and I'm running for re-election to the Wilkesboro Town Council. Just a little bit of personal background on me. I grew up in Wilkesboro, and I've been here most of my life. I worked with the News Observer in Raleigh and the Charlotte Observer for 2 years after graduating from Carolina in 1985. My husband Jim and I have been married 31 years, and we've raised our 2 children here in Wilkesboro, Mary Frances and Pat. I retired as advertising manager at the Journal-Patriot after our family sold the paper last year. It'd been in our family over 100 years. I served on the Wilkesboro Planning Board for 6 years before winning his seat on the council in 2009. I chose not to run for re-election after that term because of responsibilities associated with work and family. I missed my service to the town as our children went away to college and careers and other responsibilities lessened. I ran for council again and won in 2017. One of my commissions on the council is the Parks Department, and I'm very involved in all aspects of it, including the new pickleball courts and the new playground equipment and so forth. We're all very proud of the park, the council and the town and everyone. An important role it plays in our community. I think it's been clear during COVID that outdoor recreation is vital to our mental and physical health. Last year, I was elected to serve on the board of directors of the North Carolina League of Municipalities, representing District 10, which includes the towns in Wilkes and surrounding counties. The league represents the interests of cities and towns throughout the state, serving as one voice to the state legislature. Basically, we try to keep as much local control as possible and out of Raleigh politics. And I'm a voice speaking up for Wilkesboro in our area. I also serve on the board of directors of the Wilkes YMCA, and my husband and I are active members of First United Methodist Church.
Our next candidate to speak will be Russell Fareed.
Thank you, sir. I too appreciate the opportunity to talk about Wilkesboro's future, our community's future. I am 71 years old. I was born in the old hospital in North Wilkesboro. I was raised in North Wilkesboro, and I am proud of that. I say I'm 71 years old, but that does not mean that I am not receptive to new ideas. I have no political ladder to climb and don't want one. I have always kept one eye on the tax rate so that we can keep our taxes low, and the other eye on the future. I'm interested in bringing new jobs to our community so that our children will have a reason to come home. The last few years, we have had many improvements in Wilkesboro and in our community, some seen and some unseen. We have a quality of life issue. We have a good town, a safe, clean place to raise our children. I do believe that the future is very bright. We've had park expansions, greenway expansions, miles of bike trails. We've had all kinds of things that are of importance to all age groups in our community. We have a wastewater treatment plant expansion, which is going to be very important for our future. The same with our water treatment plant expansion. We have our super street, and hopefully our children will have a reason to come back home. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fareed. And now we'll hear from Lee Taylor. 2 minutes on the opening statement, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Lee Taylor. I'm married to Susan Pillsbury Taylor. She is a United Methodist minister at Arbor Grove near West Wilkes High School and at Union United Methodist Church on Curtis Bridge Road. I also am a pastor in North Carolina. I come from Bedford County, Virginia. I grew up on a farm. My father had an insurance agency in town and left farming to my brother and myself. We learned a lot. We learned an awful lot. One of the best educations I ever had. I went to college for a year at Virginia Tech, didn't like it. Joined the Army just to see what I was made of more than anything else. And it was a great experience for me. I say it's the best learning experience I ever had. They taught me not so much what I want, but what I don't want. And if you get right down to it, what you don't want's more lasting because you know that forever. What you do want changes on a day-to-day basis. I retired from Wells Fargo. I ran trust departments, different cities in the state of Virginia. My first wife passed away at 53, and I decided to ride my motorcycle around the country for a couple of years, more than anything else on the journey itself. And I was with me all the time. But it was a good thing. I got out, my neighbor across the street ran the development office at Sweetbriar College in Amherst County, Virginia, which is a very fine school for young ladies. And I was employed to raise money. I rose in 3 years, $25 million for them. Result, okay. I think I'm up, so it's good to be here. Nice to see you all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
I'm sorry, it's okay.
Oh, they're gonna sit up front.
It's okay.
Okay, so you're good.
I was gonna make my wife come right here back to you.
We good, 10 seconds.
We'll adjust a little bit here so that they can make sure they see the timer and know what, how much time they have left. All right, we'll enter into the question phase now. Again, we will go in alphabetical order, but beginning with the second person. The first question is for Russ Fareed. And the question is, I'll repeat the question for each candidate so you can keep up with it. Mr. Fareed, what should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown Wilkesboro?
Well, as you know, we've been through phase 1 of the downtown renovation, and you see the result of that. We're very proud of it. We'll have a phase 2, which will also be beautiful when it's finished, and that is to begin sometime in the near future, we hope. Money is a problem, of course, but we know the way we can get it done. Outdoor economy is very important to Wilkesboro. We had a bypass come in about 1969 and we became a pass-by town. What we want to be is a town of destination. And we have largely gotten a reputation now of being a town of parks and recreation. We're very proud of that. And we're expanding on that reputation every day. We believe that the outdoor economy will bring new jobs and bring our children back home. We also have an opportunity with water. Water is one of our greatest resources, which we've never used before. We could have been taking 19 million gallons without any conservation measures out of that lake up there since 1959, but we've let it roll downstream. We have missed that opportunity. We have many opportunities if we use our resources and use them wisely. I believe that we have many other things that we can do. 80% of running a town has to do with water, the way it comes in and the way it rolls out. And Wilkesboro is prepared for the future with those expansions. And we believe that new jobs will come.
Thank you, Mr. Freed. Same question, Mr. Taylor. What should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown Wilkesboro?
Well, let me say that as an outsider coming in, we've been here for 2 years. I am so impressed with Wilkesboro, I can't say it myself. Wilkesboro's done a lot already. Russ was right, they started the first stage, and that got bogged down and some things didn't get done, such as getting the wires underground and things like that. But I found out in my discussions with people at City Hall that the real culprit was the power company, because you couldn't get them to sit down to nail down what their money cost was going to be, what their time involvement was going to be, when they could do it. So they've had to put that off. The new development will be just an addition to that, costing about $6 million. It's directed towards about 4 blocks downtown. And what they're planning on doing is finishing up the wires, Russ, which is about time they got to it. And they're going to try to make this a kind of an old southern town, really scenic downtown that people will want to come to. And this is a tourist place. I think this is something that will work. They're going to plant a copious amount of trees. They're going to rework sidewalks and things so they have more of a village look. And I think that will be highly successful. You mentioned water. One of the things I came across is, will North Wilkesboro and Wilkesboro ever merge? And I would say to you, they already have a symbiotic relationship when it comes to water. By that I mean they rely on each other. One will serve the other. Wilkesboro will serve North Wilkesboro when they're having a problem, and vice versa if Wilkesboro has a problem. I think my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And Ms. Archibald, what should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown Wilkesboro?
Well, we've talked about several things here. I would begin by saying that I would want to continue to support the EDC. I think that partnership between the two towns and the county are vital to economic development for all of us, and I would certainly want to continue to support that. And part of that is we've all agreed to a uniform incentive package, which makes it easier for businesses to understand what they're looking at when they talk about expanding existing business, expanding or new business coming. Infrastructure, water plants, water treatment plants, all that's very important with economic development, and Wilkesboro is in the the final stages of planning, and we'll be implementing huge renovations and expansions to both plants, which will help us grow our existing large water user as they need to expand, and also the potential to lure others, and also the potential to provide water to more people, not just Wilkesboro. Housing's another big piece of economic development, and we're working hard to bring affordable housing and market rate housing to Wilkesboro. Soon we'll have some townhomes behind the museum, and one of our, Russ touched on our water rates. Our water rates are among the lowest in the state, if not the lowest, which is a huge plus for luring business here. I think Wilkesboro's doing a good job of with the downtown, and we will get to phase 2. And we have some ideas of how to fund that. It is a big project, but we will be able to fund it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Archibald. Question number 2, and we begin with Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, a study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for-sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to address those needs, both within and outside the city limits?
Thank you for the question. It's housing. That's kind of like the 700-pound gorilla in the living room. You know, it's there, but nobody wants to talk about it. Problem with housing is where do you start? What's the housing expansion going to feed, and what's going to feed the expansion? Lowe's was mentioned just a minute ago. Wonderful, wonderful big corporate neighbor. They bus people in from as far away as High Point every single day just to get people to run their machinery and do their work. Now, this takes these people away from their families. It burns up their street time, and it's extra tiring. I can't not imagine that if we built multiple family housing that would be directed towards these people, that it wouldn't be snapped up right away. So what have you done? You've built new houses. You have, for multiple housing operation like that, you got a huge kick to the tax bill for real estate. That's a wonderful thing. That's better than coming up with a project and wondering how you're going to fund it. Housing goes to every segment: single family housing, multiple family housing, for large families. And rather than trying to build ourselves, we've got a good history of partnering with construction agencies. And they come in here, they do a good job, they like us, we like them, and they come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Archibald, a study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for-sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to address these needs, both within and outside the city limits?
Well, housing is a big issue nationwide, not just Wilkesboro or Wilkes County. Right now, a local developer is building some townhomes behind the Heritage Museum, and he's going to be building some others behind the former Nations Bank building on Main Street. Towns don't build houses, but what we can do is offer help, assistance in any way we can. We own some land on Barracks Hill, and we've cleared it, or in the process of clearing it, and it will be marketed soon for residential, market rate residential, and be overlooking the park. It'll be a beautiful site. I think it'll be highly desirable. The town's working with developers, apartment developers right now, who are very interested in building apartments in Wilkesboro, and I think we'll see something happen in the next year, within the next year, about that. And we're trying to identify other places in our ETJ, I guess that's what you mean by outside the city limits, 1 mile perimeter around the town limits, to identify good spots for housing, and we'll work with infrastructure in any way we can to help a developer with those housing needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Archibald. Mr. Fareed. A study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for-sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to address these needs both within and outside the city limits?
That study was sponsored by the EDC, and I want to throw out my compliments to them because it was very important for us to know what we lacked and what we could do and what we cannot do. We have apartment plans on the way, as Nellie said. Those condos that are to be built in downtown Wilkesboro will provide housing stock. We will have more people walking around downtown, shopping downtown, invigorating downtown. But our biggest problem is that when people can't live here, they're not going to work here. We need housing because we need to bring jobs to the Wilkesboros. We are in the process of looking for more opportunities for workforce housing in Wilkesboro, and that is an ongoing process. It's hard, but we're trying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fareed. Question number 3 begins with Ms. Archibald. Ms. Archibald, what is most lacking in Wilkesboro? What is most lacking in Wilkesboro in terms of quality of life? And what, if anything, should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to address this?
That's an interesting question because I think we've done so much to address quality of life issues. I really do. We've worked so hard on the parks, and we provide so many recreational activities for people through biking trails, which we also run on those trails, tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts, casual walking trails, splash pad for children, the commons for music and other entertainment. Those things have brought dining downtown, and other forms of shopping. I guess as far as what we're lacking in quality of life, I guess my biggest concerns are the housing, and that's a quality of life issue, and jobs. We need jobs. We have a low crime rate. That's definitely a quality of life issue. We will continue to work on our strengths, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Archibald. Mr. Fareed, what is most lacking in Wilkesboro, excuse me, in terms of quality of life, and what, if anything, should the Wilkesboro Town Council do to address this?
That is a hard question because you asked me to not be optimistic. What Nellie said is absolutely true. We've gone a long way in the last few years toward improving the quality of life for our people. But we have not done that for everyone, and that's our responsibility to try to include everyone, 3,600 people. I believe that we can do that if we keep working. There are many things that we can improve, even though we're a great community. I'm very proud of this community. And Nellie's right, we have a clean, safe community. That is the biggest thing that that made me want to run for office, to pay back for a safe, clean community. Our housing stock is low, and we have to have more housing stock. We have to have reason for our people to work here, to live here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Freed. Mr. Taylor, what is most lacking in Wilkesboro in terms of quality of life, and what, if anything, should the town council do to address these?
Overall, I would say that probably housing is going to be there as much as anything. But before I do that, Wilkesboro has done an exemplary job of its walking paths, its ball game fields, what it provides for its youth. Just even at the museum, they got those silly fountains that shoot up in the air, and just flock to those things in the summertime. There is plenty of good, safe stuff to do around here, and the parks and recreations people are on the ball. And I agree with us, they're doing a good job. But housing, again, that's, where do you start? You've got to do the multifamily building like what's being done already. You've got to really work on your relationships with the developers and offer to help them as a town any way you can, maybe with the infrastructure of setting things up so that they can move in quicker and easier and start their building process, get in, get out, get their money. We get what we want. We provide more housing. More people are satisfied by staying here and living here as well as working here. I'm very proud of Wilkesboro. You ask what can be done. There's always stuff that can be done, but what they've done already, I think we need to take a special notice of that. And for a town this size to do it without eating up all their reserves, my hat's off to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Question number 4, and we'll begin with Mr. Fareed. Mr. Fareed, what Wilkesboro ordinances are most in need of revision and why?
First comes to mind the UDOs, Uniform Development Ordinances. Years ago, we had a joint committee between the Wilkesboros, our planning committees, to overhaul our ordinances as far as development was concerned. What should developers expect? Investors, builders, contractors. We had different rules on both sides of the river. And a contractor or developer would come in and learn the rules on one side and then go to the other side of the river and be completely befuddled because of the different rules. We wanted to unify those ordinances in a manner that would make everyone understand what the rules were on both sides of the river. That effort died. I don't know why. The commissioners in North Wilkesboro should ask that question. The council members in Wilkesboro should ask that question. We need to get these two towns together so that we will have a united front, and people coming in here will know that we are business friendly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fareed. Mr. Taylor, what Wilkesboro ordinances are in need of revision and why?
This is not my long suit, and I'll tell you why. I have not been working hard like my partners up here on stage for the last few years and keeping up with things like that. But here's what I do know. I talked with several people downtown to try to get an input on what type of thing we're talking about here. How would you know about that? Is it getting into the news? I said, no. And then I was talking to one person in particular. He said, generally speaking, ordinances are changed by need, which you just identified, by the way, and opportunity. And I wasn't crazy about the example he gave me, but it made sense. This people that took over the Dodge Jeep place wanted to put up a sign or flag the size of Connecticut, and it violated our flag rules. Just wouldn't work. But they got together and they came up with something that was an in-between. Randy Marion was happy, we were happy, and the ordinance got changed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Archibald, what Wilkesboro ordinances are most in need of revision and why?
Well, I like the other two, don't have a lengthy list on this, but I was going to talk about the uniform development ordinances that Russ referenced. We do need to have an agreement with North Wilkesboro, have a common ordinance for developers to make it easier for them to understand what the rules are. It shouldn't be hard to do that, and we need to get on that right away when the election's over. And Mr. Taylor was talking about the sign ordinance, flag ordinance, and that is the case that came up out of necessity. I would say that I think Wilkesboro tries to not be too onerous on rules or regulations and be as cooperative as we can to maintain the integrity of the town and fair and attractive. So I think that is true that to a certain extent we do it to the need in fairness. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Archibald. We'll move to question number 5, which will begin with Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? Are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
Well, I think the answer to that starts with matters less what I think than the two towns think. And there's been outreach over the years to bring them together. As I mentioned earlier, they have a symbiotic relationship with the water. My understanding is in the summer, Reddish River is pretty undrinkable, so they get water from us. If we were ever to have a major problem like a gas tanker turnover where the bridge washed out and get all that stuff polluted, we can get water from North Wilkesboro. So we have that symbiotic like dependency upon each other right there. We're already joined. In terms of services, our first responders in both towns, and I know them in both towns, are really good. And one of the beauties of it is just with that river between us, if there's a major problem in North or just downtown Wilkesboro town, the other side can be there before you can blink and don't think they won't be. That means police, that means fire, that means emergency. We have a symbiotic relationship. We rely on each other. Does either side want to give up its autonomy, to give up its identity, to give up the heritage that is so proud? I think not. And I don't think they have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Ms. Archibald.
Well, talking about combining services, we're already in a study with North Wilkesboro to have a free interchange of our water systems to, in the case of either of us needing water. Part of that is our systems are a little different, so we have to determine what needs to be done to make them more compatible. I think it has a lot to do with corrosion control. We'll be getting the results back from that very soon and be talking about it. After we come to some understanding about how to resolve that, I guess we'll be talking about rates. And I expect that'll be a good discussion, but I expect we'll work something out that's fair to both towns. And that will be a big step. We've been talking about water for a long time, Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro, and how to work together to have enough water, affordable water, and I think this is going to solve a lot of problems. I really do, and I think we'll get there. We're also sharing a dispatcher right now. That saves both towns money. We have interlocal agreements with our fire departments, and I'm hoping that we will be talking more and more about sharing, or maybe not sharing, but taking turns on big equipment purchases. Suppose North Wilkesboro buys a big fire truck that will serve both of us, and then we'll buy the fire truck that will serve both of us. We don't all need to have the same big fire truck for our two little towns. I think we've come a long way, I really do. As far as joining the two towns, I don't know, but I do know that that should be a decision for the voters. I don't think that should be decisions for town councils to combine the two towns. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Archibald. Mr. Fareed, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
It would take a referendum in both towns. If that referendum were held this weekend, both towns would turn it down. That doesn't mean we shouldn't study it, though. We could have a study to see what the advantages and disadvantages would be. And at the same time, we can study what we can merge in the way of services. We don't have to merge these two towns, but let's save money. Every time a dollar goes out of the county unnecessarily, that's a dollar that we can't spend here. There's only one reason for not having that study, and that is that we might be afraid of what it would show us. Aside from water, which is a very important thing that we have given our attention to, we should think about our fire service and how we can combine our efforts there. There's no use to buy a $750,000 tanker truck when we can share equipment and save money. We've talked about the UDOs. That's a way we can merge our services. I want to stress this. We are not two towns divided by a river. We are one community united by a river. And we need to start acting that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fareed. We're now at our closing statements. Candidates, again, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement, to say anything that you think we've missed so far. And we'll begin again alphabetically by starting with Ms. Archibald. Your closing statement.
Thank you, Dave. We have great things happening in Wilkesboro. Our parks are growing and offering more and more to all of our citizens. You'll see a lot of changes on the Oakwoods roadside of Cove Creek Park as we build out the new inclusive playground and fishing pier. We've applied for a grant to add miles and features to the bike trails. We're hosting our first pickleball tournament this Saturday. We have over 100 participants. Many of them are from out of town. And we'll only grow on that. We'll have more and bigger. Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro, and the county are working together on an outdoor economy initiative that our park system is an integral part of. And it's great that we're all working together on this. It'll only help Wilkes County to increase awareness of our great outdoor activities. We see new townhomes being built by a local developer. The town's working to bring more market rate apartments and working with Habitat for Humanity for affordable homes at Bryant Village off Corporation Street. We'll soon be marketing town land overlooking the park on Barrett's Hill for residential development. We're embarking on major expansions and improvements projects at our water and water treatment plants that will ensure safe, clean, plentiful water for decades. It is a generational project. It will give us the capacity to provide water to a wide area for residential and industrial use. The public restroom facility / concession stand area known as the Rock Building at the Commons will be under construction in the coming months and ready for the 2022 concert series. We've been able to pay for much of our improvements through grants and private donations, which saves your tax dollars and adds value for our citizens. We've got a lot going on, and I've got the ability, the time, and energy to devote to it. My roots run deep in Wilkesboro, and I want to see us prosper and grow in all the right ways. I'd also like to emphasize the importance for all of us, citizens and the towns, to work together for the common good. We're small towns. Everything that happens in one town affects the other, for good or bad. We're making progress in that direction. If re-elected, I will work to continue and expand on cooperation and collaboration between the towns.
Thank you, Ms. Archibald. Mr. Fareed, your 2-minute closing statement.
I want to thank the sponsors again. I want to thank everyone for coming out. It's a good turnout, and it bodes well for the future of the Wilkesboros that we have this much interest. Nellie Archibald and I have already taken an oath to serve the interest of the people of Wilkesboro, 3,600 strong. We take that oath seriously, but as it occurs to me, there's a lot more to that oath than what we usually think of. If you carry one thing away with you this evening, I hope it will be this. We sent our children off to school. We gladly paid for their educations, and they didn't come back. My generation's greatest failure. We failed to provide jobs so that our children could work here, live here, raise their families here. We cannot hug our grandchildren if they live 1,000 miles away. My hope is that every day and on the last day, we'll be able to hug our grandchildren. That's why I'm running for a 3rd term. That's what I'm working for. I'm trying to keep my oath. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fareed. Mr. Taylor, your closing 2 minutes.
I appreciate the newspaper taking responsibility. I think this is going quite well. I thank each and every one of you for taking the time to come. You've shown how much you care for your communities. For myself, I'm a great believer in small business. And when we have mandatory shutdowns, without anybody being really clear about why, a lot of small businesses went out of business. The interesting thing is that the big package stores, the big stores did not. They didn't have to close down. That doesn't seem to be balanced and fair to me. I believe in equal treatment under the law for every person, regardless of race, religious affiliation, color, I don't care. You have the same rights as whoever you're sitting next to. And I'll take what you said, Russ, a step further. One of the things my generation did, or maybe even the one after, is we killed the incentive to work. We made everything too easy for the kids. Kids want something, they whine loud enough, they got it. Now they don't want to work. And the government has made it especially difficult because you can stay home and make as much as minimum wage. And I see my time is up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I'd like to comment and thank you for your, making yourselves available for public service and for the service that you render. And I think that each one of us, this is a tough thing to do, to stand up in front of folks and pour your heart out and tell them why they ought to receive your vote. So let's give them a hand for what they've done.
Good right back at you. Thank you very much.
All right, our next forum will be for the North Wilkesboro Mayoral candidates, so if we can have Mr. Cooper,
Russ.
Mr. Hamby, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Johnson come forward, and if y'all will give us about 10 minutes, we'll be set up and ready to go.
It's a complete compliment. Sure, thank you. You get a deposit, you get it back. Thank you so much. See you.
Love the cowbell.
Good to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if we can come to order, I can have the mayoral candidates please come forward. Mr. Cooper, Mr. Handy, Mr. Hauser, Mr. Johnson. We do have name tags. All right, here we go. A couple of seconds here.
How you doing, sir?
All right. Yes, sir. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we do have bathroom facilities here at the Marketplace. I believe, if I got you correct earlier, women's on this side, men's on this side. So feel free to use the facilities there. We'll go ahead and begin. It's now 6:20. Thank all y'all for coming. Thank you candidates for agreeing to participate in the forum. And our format is going to be consistent as it was earlier. For those new candidates that are here now, we will give you 2 minutes to give an opening statement. We have our timer in Ms. Pavette over here. She will raise up that yellow sign when you have 30 seconds left. And then she's got that obnoxious cow bell that she'll ring if you go over time. We will give you an opening statement. You have 2 minutes. Then we will ask a series of 5 questions, the same question for each candidate, and we'll start in alphabetical order and then rotate in between as they descend. Each candidate, I will repeat the question each time for each candidate so that you'll understand what you're answering. You have 2 minutes on each response of the 5 questions. And then Ms. Pavette again will let you know as your timing goes. We ask that the audience do not applaud in between candidates so that we can keep this moving. And I appreciate your participation tonight. We will not take any questions again from the audience. All of these questions were formulated by the Journal-Patriot news staff with the input of their readership that submitted questions for them to consider to be answered. So those questions were determined in that fashion. If y'all are ready to begin, we will start with opening statements. And Mr. Cooper, you're up.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening to everybody, and thank you for being a part of this forum this evening. Thank you, we have the sound now. So thank you for being a part of this forum this evening. It's an honor to be here among so many friends and people that I grew up with. I grew up around North Wilkesboro. My mom, who's here tonight, had a used bookstore on Main Street for 36 years. My first memories, my best memories, are in this town. I remember playing on the playground at Smoot Park and going to movies at the Liberty Theater and watching the fireworks on the 4th of July. All of us were here tonight because we share those memories of North Wilkesboro. We remember what we were and what we can be again. Now, I'm a product of North Wilkesboro. My very first job was delivering newspapers into downtown, going door to door. I went on in life to live in Raleigh and Washington, D.C., but this was always my home. I never forgot where I came from. For 4 years, I practiced law at the McAwee firm on Main Street. I served on the boards of the Downtown Partnership, the Wilkes Hall of Fame, Habitat for Humanity, the Catherine Barber Memorial Shelter, Project Lazarus, Wilkes Recovery Revolution, and 2 years as president of the Wilkes Community Foundation. Now I'm running for mayor. I'm running for mayor to give our citizens the tools that we need to compete in this economy. I'm running for mayor to help us bring this community back to life. But I can't do this alone. This campaign is about asking for your vote, but it's also about asking for your help. This journey doesn't end on election day. That's when the work begins. North Wilkesboro has a proud history. That story isn't. We get to write the next chapter. We get to help this community make history again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hamby, 2 minutes statement.
My name is William Hamby. I was born and raised here in Wilkes County. 20 years ago, I moved to North Wilkesboro. And been a small business owner, several different businesses in the county for a 2-year period. Before that, I was a small business. I see the struggles that small business people have, not only in the county, but the town of North Wilkesboro. Something has to be done. And I decided at 73 years old and never run for an office, it's time for me to speak out. So that's the reason I'm running for mayor of North Wilkesboro. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hauser, your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, David. Good evening, I'm Mark Hauser, and I'm running for mayor of North Wilkesboro. My wife Carla and I have 3 children, 4 grandchildren, and 1 more on the way. Parents always want their children, particularly grandchildren, to have things better than they did. And I want to see North Wilkesboro prosper and realize its full potential for all of us to enjoy. There's no reason our town can't be as attractive and as inviting and as prosperous as the surrounding towns in our area. A few months ago, I knocked on about 90% of the businesses in North Wilkesboro. Time and time again, I heard how difficult it was to conduct business in and business with our town. Small businesses will be the backbone of our future economic development. The businesses we have should be made to feel that they have a friend and an ally regarding the town, not an adversary or bureaucracy. Present and future businesses should be made aware of all the things the town has to offer to help them thrive and grow. This is not happening, and this needs to change. Our parks and public places need to be refreshed to make our community a more inviting place to live and to visit. Our law enforcement needs adequate funding and competitive pay to retain good officers and to recruit more as needed. Our firefighters need up-to-date training and equipment to protect them and us. All of us, from banks to contractors and town officials, must work together to make quality housing available to families to better impact our neighborhoods. To accomplish these goals, it will take hard work and common sense decisions. I have the time, energy, desire, life, and business experience to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mr. Johnson, your 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. This is a privilege and an honor for me to be able to participate in this forum. And as the mayor of the town of North Wilkesboro, I've listened to the comments that's been made down the line, and I couldn't disagree with any of them. But in my tenure as the mayor, I just want to run over a few accomplishments that has been accomplished by my tenure as the mayor. And first and foremost, or I don't know, maybe not foremost, they're all great. I've advocated for establishing and funding a live music event series, Concerts on the Deck, that began in 2008 and has grown every year since. Sought support for the construction of the Yadkin Valley Marketplace construction, encouraged downtown improvements at the intersection of 9th and Main and the intersection of 6th and Main, facilitated bringing new businesses to North Wilkesboro, which consist of Samaritan's Purse, Copper Barrel Distillery, 1010 Tide, La Fortuna, Key City Antiques, Rogers Discounts, Furniture, Don's Bakery, and Pizzeria. So with those things being said, I want to continue to be the mayor that will and can continue to make this town prosper and grow as it has in my tenure. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Now we'll begin our question series, and then moving in the rotation, Mr. Hamby, you get the first question. Mr. Hamby, what attributes of leadership will you bring to the office of mayor? Describe how you will use them to serve the people of North Wilkesboro.
First of all, the leadership that I bring is what I've had to do all my life. In every business that I've ever owned, I've had to show leadership so it could grow and be prosperous. That's a great thing that I already know how to do. We have to provide jobs for the people of the town of North Wilkesboro. Quality jobs that are not $7, $8, $9 an hour. We need jobs in the town of North Wilkesboro for the middle income people, that they can make an income that they can support their families and children. So many things that need to be done as far as in the leadership. All these buildings that we have surrounding us, and we can see one on the right side of us. It's sit there many years. They could have been a prosperous building. that could have brought jobs and entertainment to the town of North Wilkesboro. And I say the town of North Wilkesboro too many times. It's not the town of North Wilkesboro. It's for the people of the town of North Wilkesboro. They have definitely been left out, not in just the last few years, but for probably 50 years. Decisions that were made that probably wouldn't have made it the second time if it had a chance to redo it. So seeing all these things for all these many years that should have been handled differently, and that's what I'll do. I'll handle them differently. There has to be a way to bring jobs back to the people of the town of North Wilkesboro.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hauser, what attributes of leadership will you bring to the office of mayor? Describe how you will use them to serve the people of North Wilkesboro.
Thank you, Dave. I have a proven track record of successful leadership. I spent over 4 decades traveling the United States and Canada and working with 36 regional sales managers. I know how to build a team, motivate, mentor, and encourage others. My teams are successful in generating revenue to maintain our stock value and enable growth. Over the years, we won numerous awards and were rewarded for achieving our goals. I want the mayor, town commissioners, town manager, and the department heads all to work closer together. I believe we should have common goals and objectives. I want to bring these principles to the town and see us all work together for the good of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Hauser. Mr. Johnson.
As I was saying earlier, and I won't continue with the things that's happened and proceeded here in the town of North Wilkesboro. There's been a lot of accomplishments made by working with the town board members, the planning and zoning board, and that is some areas that we have accomplished a lot of things that has brought businesses to the town of North Wilkesboro, and we will continue to work. I pledge that as the mayor. When re-elected, I will continue to work hard toward the goals of seeing that these attributes are continued, and whomever is sitting on the town board as commissioners, I will continue to work with them as I have in the past, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cooper, what attributes of leadership will you bring to the office of mayor? Describe how you will use them to serve the people of North Wilkesboro.
Thank you for the question. You know, I'm pretty lucky that I inherited my mom's compassion and her empathy for others, my dad's energy and enthusiasm for life, and that's a pretty powerful combination. I'm also, I got knocked down a few times when I was younger, and I had to learn to get back up, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was the best leadership training that you could ever get, was having to learn to pick yourself up. If you want to lead a community to do that, it was a good experience. Now, I've also been fortunate to learn from a number of other great leaders myself. I worked as a speechwriter in state government. I served 3 years as the co-director of a leadership development organization. I am currently part of the leadership network at the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C., and currently part of a leadership fellowship hosted by President Bush and President Clinton. And what I've learned over my career is that the best leaders are the ones who listen and who bring out the best in others. Great leaders inspire you. Great leaders challenge you. And that's what I'm hoping to do in this campaign. None of these candidates can do this work on their own. We need more people getting involved. So I'm encouraging folks to volunteer for the Downtown Partnership, to volunteer for the Cultural Arts Council, to mentor a young person on the weekend, to pick up trash and to come downtown and shop locally. I also want to see North Wilkesboro be a leader as a community. We're a small town, but we're also famous. If we're successful, people will be looking to us for ideas. And we should be trying to take on the issues that exist here, the opioid crisis, homelessness, doing something about them, and being leaders as a community. And that's why I'm running for mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Question number 2, and we'll begin with Mr. Hauser. Mr. Hauser, if you received a $1 million grant to use for North Wilkesboro in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
That's a tough question, Dane. $1 million grant, I would probably, I think that one of the most pressing problems we have in this town is a shortage of housing. There's just not a lot out there. There's waiting lists. So probably what I do is to tackle that problem, I would encourage a united effort with the mayor, town council, town manager to go out and listen and contact and sell and encourage contractors to speculators. The town can help with land. The town can help with tax deferments, not forever, but to get things started. I think the building codes should be relaxed and be flexible, not break them. But if the guy needs a break, he said, let me sell a couple of units so I can get everybody in the sidewalks in, fine, let him do it. These things are not carved in stone. So I think the main thing would be housing and be a united effort to approach the contractors, banks, everyone, and get them involved in this process and make it a big united effort. And I think that's where the money should go, and I think it'd pay dividends. More people will come, more people will start more businesses, and it's not going to hurt the tax base either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mr. Johnson, if you received a $1 million grant to use for North Wilkesboro in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
Well, as it's been stated, that is a very, I don't say hard question, but knowing that you had that kind of money to invest in the community, and we have been working as a town board with trying to help the people have better housing out, not just in the immediate downtown area, but out in the outlying areas of the town corporate limits. We've got a little program that we've been using and doing some efforts of loaning monies to do that. But that would be a good place to use that $1 million, is put it in our coffers and use it to help these people better their homes. They can retrofit, upfit the existing house, maybe even add a little something extra on the outside if they'd love to do so. That's what I would try to do with the $1 million, is pass it on to the people out in the community that needs to better their homes and upgrade them and that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cooper, if you received a $1 million grant to use for North Wilkesboro in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
I think we have to decide how to spend it in the most wisest fashion, which is probably to set a foundation for the years to come. North Wilkesboro dominated the 20th century. We had this great economy built around furniture manufacturing and then eventually Lowe's Home Improvement. We've gone through a time of transition when we lost a lot of that. And now we need to be thinking about what the economy is going to be like for the next several decades. So I think that we can begin that work by investing in our quality of life. When you look at coming out of the pandemic, before COVID, 5% of Americans work from home full time. After COVID, it'll be 25% and rising. And Wilkes has one great advantage coming out of the pandemic, which is that we have broadband. We have small town values and a great school system and an outdoor economy. We have really great fundamentals, and we need to find a way to connect them, to invest in the assets that we have, to make the downtown a very attractive place to come in and spend time and spend money. So I think that you need to divide those up. Housing is a great idea. We need apartments for young people and patio homes for retirees. We need to do a number of placemaking projects around the downtown. We should also have a concert series that brings in people from out of town to spend money. Every month there should be a concert that brings in people from Charlotte, from Boone, and that way small businesses can stay open. There's a number of little things. There's not one big solution, But I think that we need to engage the community in deciding that and spend it wisely. But there are a number of things to do, and it all goes to quality of life and finding our place in this new economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hammond, if you received a $1 million grant to use for North Wilkesboro in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
First of all, it would be going back to small businesses. If you start at the bottom of Second Street Hill, you come to the end of Main Street and turn right on 10th Street, you'll see probably 8 to 10 commercial buildings that have been sitting empty for years, just like the one that we can point at across the street. That could be a fabulous place for the town of North Wilkesboro. These buildings would be brought up to code. These buildings would be made so that small businesses could be in each one of these buildings. But if you do that, you've got a workforce there. You've got people paying taxes. You've got people that's got an income that they can support their family. They can buy their own. That being all, on Second Street, every building that's empty and been empty for many years here in North Wilkesboro. Put small businesses, restaurants, whatever be needed. Give people an opportunity to have a place to start a small business, and that would be a great thing to do, as well as recondition this building across the street. That's what I would do with it.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Question number 3, and we'll begin with Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if elected in November, what are some of your top goals or priorities for the next 12 months?
Thank you, Dane. One of the top priorities that I would want to try to do is to continue, as has been said, to work with the merchants in downtown. There are some empty buildings that don't have businesses in them, but I walked the streets the other day. There's not as many as has been stated, but we need to work with our downtown businesses to see that they can continue to grow and operate and to expand our downtown businesses down into the block 46 down there. I've had an opportunity while at an EDC meeting down in Moxville here recently to be able to talk with a group that's going to bring that block there, that if you turn left in block 46, go back toward the restaurant. They're going to purchase that. They're going to put a 2-story building in there. It's a construction company, Wilson Construction, and they'll have a business office upstairs, and downstairs they'll do all their planning and that kind of stuff. So one of my goals is to try to see that we can do that, and also try to get some stuff out in the industrial park. That's an area that needs to grow, and as the mayor and working with the town board of commissioners, I'd like to be able to see that some of that happens, some growth, more growth out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cooper, if elected in November, what are some of your top goals or priorities for the next 12 months?
Thank you. I have 3 main priorities if elected. First is to help grow the local economy. Second is to revive the downtown. Third is to help strengthen our sense of community. And you can begin that work by doing the little things, by improving our marketing and our presence on social media, by going after grant funding to fix up our parks, and by doing the little placemaking projects around the downtown to bring in more foot traffic to support our small businesses. We should also be doing the big things, making sure our firefighters and police officers have the resources that they need. I want to see a program that incentivizes buying locally. It's one thing to encourage people to shop locally. It's another thing to have a program of prizes and promotions that gives people an incentive to go and shop locally. I'd like to see that get started. I'd also like to see us create a culture of access and service. I'd like to see a neighborhood council where you have captains from every neighborhood who are able to come together every couple months. I'd like to see a business roundtable where representatives from the business community have a voice in what happens in their government. And then every week, I would like for us to have open door office hours, perhaps every Friday, where people from the general public can come in and talk about what's going on in their lives. If you have that culture of service, we'll be in a good position. Then I'd also like to see us take on issues like the opioid crisis and homelessness and child hunger. We shouldn't be leaving these to other people to try to solve for us, and we should be talking about those issues and seeing what we can do to work with the town of Wilkesboro and county government and various nonprofits to really put a dent into these issues and make some progress. So those are some of my initial goals, and I would hit the ground running, and if elected, I look forward to serving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hamby, if elected in November, what are some of your top goals or priorities for the next 12 months?
First of all, you have to set goals to achieve your goals. My goal would be to bring manufacturing companies back to the town of North Wilkesboro. My goal would be at least 1,000 new jobs. Sounds big, but it's easy. You just have to reach out to manufacturing companies to come and relocate in North Wilkesboro. They're not going to come here and build a corporation or a manufacturing company if we sit and wait on them to come. We have to go out and talk to them and encourage them and tell them what a great town that we have. We have everything that they need here. So that's the simple process. Go and bring them in. When they get here, they'll see what a wonderful place the town of North Wilkesboro is. That will create your first 1,000 jobs. And these jobs should be for middle income salary, $18 to $25 an hour. What we don't see a lot of in North Wilkesboro. So that would be my goal, would be for 1,000 new jobs in the town of North Wilkesboro with new factories coming in. The elected mayor, that will be my first goal and my biggest goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hauser,
Thank you, David.
if elected in November, what are some of your top goals or priorities for the next 12 months?
Thank you again. I think I'd like to see a closer alignment of all town officials and staff and have the town officials get out in the field and meet local people, tell them what the town has to offer them, make them feel welcome and valued. And I would encourage a more hands-on approach to be there in person instead of email, text, or cell phone. I would plan to place on the agenda for town meetings a discussion on refreshing the parks and public places, but also like to discuss the pay rates for the North Wilkesboro Police Department. And their rates are less than Wilkesboro and Wilkes County deputies. I would also make plans to rehab the downtown derelict and empty buildings. I think North Wilkesboro also needs a mayor to set an agenda, establish goals and objectives to improve the town. More housing geared toward families, as I said before, clean up the parks and the public places, rehabilitate those downtown buildings and make sure the needs of police and fire are met. Ensure taxpayer dollars are wisely spent. Enforce downtown parking laws and speeding laws on the grid streets. Listen and respond to citizens. We need a mayor that can be a passionate and professional spokesperson for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. We begin with question number 4. This will go to you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
Thank you for the question. The key to economic development is first understanding where we've been, where we are, and where we can go. North Wilkesboro was a railroad town, a furniture town, and then the corporate headquarters of a Fortune 500 company. It was 100 years ago exactly that a man named L.S. Lowe opened up North Wilkesboro Hardware on C Street. Today that company has over 300,000 employees and last year made over $72 billion in total revenue. We've done it before, and we can do it again. But we have to understand that economic development is partially about offering incentives for companies to relocate here and trying to bring in manufacturing, but it's also about supporting our own. We have to believe that the next lows will come from here. That's why we need to be investing in small businesses and making it easier to open a business and having a workspace for young entrepreneurs. We need to support workplace training programs and skills trainings and apprenticeships for young people. We need to encourage young people to stay here. We need to encourage them to move back. We need to invest in the amenities and the quality of life that'll bring them here. And part of economic development is also, making a use of the assets that we have here, the library, the theater, this concert venue. I would love to see us plant more trees, have more shade here to make this the best venue that it can be. And we also need to realize that we're in a pretty good position. As my mom said the other night, all roads lead to Rome in terms of North Wilkesboro, 421, 115, 268, 18. We need to support the businesses that are on those roads and understand that people come to North Wilkesboro every day. And if we have a strategy to get them to get out of the car, to walk around, to shop locally, and spend their money, we'll be in a strong position. But economic development is not just about statistics and things like that. It's also about real people's lives. That person who lost their job at Lowe's or who was laid off from the furniture company, those are real people. And we need to focus on them, bring them out of the shadows, help them get back in the workforce and on with their lives, and grow the economy from the bottom up and the inside out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hamby, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
First of all, what's already been said is to ease up on this restrictions on new businesses that want to come into North Wilkesboro, even if you're already here. We have, like I said, 115. It's going to grow and it's going to be a vital part of North Wilkesboro in the future. New road to come through. So that means new businesses will be built. Restrictions are too strict. They should ease up on them. Same way with 268. Then we've got 18. We've got every road coming into North Wilkesboro. And there's no reason why we can't capture that. And I go to manufacturing. When we talk about economic development, it's what's in your wallet. If you don't have money to spend, the town is not going to grow. It's about the people of North Wilkesboro. The people have to have better paying jobs to live in North Wilkesboro, and the job has to be provided for them. That's my main point. It's about the people of the town of North Wilkesboro. They have been left out many, many years. We need to forget about the decisions that was made 50 years ago or so, and we lost all the revenue because we wouldn't provide the two essentials, water and sewer. It's just a shame that we made that kind of decision from the town of North Wilkesboro. And it's just inflamed Wilkesboro. They've done a wonderful job with it. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hauser, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
Thank you, Dave. The town board, they need to get together and get everybody on the same page. Establish the goals and objectives, and I think they should. You've got to reach out. Untold is unsold. You have to go out and encourage contractors, builders, banks, speculators, get all of them on the same page too, to build more housing that's sorely needed. As I said before, we also need to make use of the land that the town owns and also give them tax deferments and be flexible and relax some of the ordinances that are stifling growth now. And I've heard that from other small businesses in this town when I door knocked on them. Speak with the owners of empty buildings, encourage them to get the property ready to sell or lease. In a lot of cases, you're going to have to enforce the building codes. Reach out to current businesses in person and make them aware of all the things that are available to them to help them. Make a friend, make them feel welcome and valued. And I think we also should schedule more public events right here. Concerts are one thing, but you should vary it. And I
Everybody wants to get in a big, hear a concert, mix with a lot of people. But there should be more things scheduled here and more things scheduled right up here. Instead of blocking the streets once a year for Apple Fest, it should be done more often. That way people can walk those streets, shops are open, it'll bring in a lot more people and a lot more dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mr. Johnson, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
Thank you, Danny. I think we, as a town board, all need to be, and it's been stated, I think, by about everybody up down the table. We need to come together in one accord, working for the good of the community, the good of the town, the citizens, and to make this place a better place to be able to come and live and to be able to have decent housing, as has been stated. And I think as a leader of the mayor of town of North Wilkesboro, I look forward to trying to continue to reach out to the people in the town, the people outside the town, reach out to Wilkesboro and working together. We're working together now with a lot of different projects with the town of Wilkesboro, and I just look forward to trying to continue to do that kind of, be that kind of a leader and to do that kind of work along with the Board of Commissioners and anything else that they might instill or they may suggest. And I think we have a good unity and harmony working together now. Some of these guys, most of them, have attended the meetings. I think you've seen that we all try to work together in unity and one accord, and I want to continue to try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll begin now with question number 5, and our first candidate will be Mr. Hamby. Comes back to your turn again, sir. Okay. All right, question number 5. Mr. Hamby, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
First of all, I'll answer the last question first. Yes, I'm in favor of merging the two towns. You know, we've been in North Wilkesboro and we've been in Wilkesboro. There's no reason why we can't be the Wilkesboros. Much better sounding name. We can all work together and we can grow together. By connecting the two towns together, like I had heard a statement earlier, it's all it's gonna do is bring new growth to both towns when we start working together. We don't have to spend all the money that each town spends on different things, fire department, water, sewer. By looking at these things in two different manners, and to bring them into one, it has to be a cost savings to both towns, and that's what we want. We're all one people. We just, like I heard earlier, we're divided by a river that supplies both of us water, whatever we need. So yes, I am very much in favor of merging the towns if the people vote so. Now that was my opinion. The people have to vote to decide whether they want to be merged or not. But that is my feelings on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Mr. Hauser, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
Thank you, Dave. I'm not generally a big fan of studies. In my business career, I saw a lot of them take a long time and burn through a lot of money. But however, this case is different. If a proposal will keep the benefits for both towns the same, but the cost goes down, that's something we definitely should look into. And also, if the benefits improve and the cost goes down, it's absolutely a no-brainer. So I think there should be a serious consideration to have this done. I don't think the two towns should merge everything together all at once. I'm sorry, I bought my page. I think For instance, we should start with water, and really this should have been done years ago. Then we would have to ask ourselves a bunch of tough questions. Do we really need 2 separate fire departments? Do we need 2 separate police departments? 2 mayors? 2 boards of commissioners? What about the town managers and all the departments and buildings that both towns maintain that are essentially identical? I don't believe this will happen quickly. It should be up to the voters, and it would take years for the merger to become complete, but we should start. Anyone who took a course in economics, whether it be high school or college, they learned about the economy of scale. One larger service is usually easier and cheaper to provide than 2 smaller separate ones. So I think a study in this case would be warranted because I see a lot of benefits and a lot of money that could be saved. And these savings could benefit the citizens of both towns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mr. Johnson, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the 2 towns merging, and why?
Thank you, Dane. I certainly do support, and it's been said, I think, down on the table here and by me, that we certainly need to work with the town of Wilkesboro to merge, and we're in that process now with water and working with them on sewer, providing it on down to 115 area down toward the Speedway. And that's another thing that's going to come to fruition here pretty soon. Wilkesboro is going to provide the water, and we're going to provide the sewer. But that being said, I do so, as far as merging the 2 towns together, I don't know if, I believe it might have been Mr. Hauser or that said it would take a vote. I mean, that's something that has to be, you'd have to petition the state to have a vote, and if the people voted to do it, that's it. But you'd have to put it before the people. And as far as do I favor it, it'd be okay with me if there were. I'm not opposed to anything that would help us to progress here in the county and to be able to serve the people the way we need to serve them. So that's my take on that, and I wouldn't have a problem with it, but there's got to be there'd have to be a vote by the people to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cooper, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the 2 towns merging, and why?
Thank you for your question. People from outside of Wilkes County don't make the distinction between the 2 municipalities. They see this as one big community. When they come to Mayoral Fest or they go to the Apple Festival, they see it as one place. And so, we should be doing our best to work together and rising together. Wilkesboro will do well when North Wilkesboro does well, and North Wilkesboro will do well when Wilkesboro does well. And, we should be continuing to look at working together on things like water infrastructure and other services. I do support studying this issue. I think it's an issue that's time has come. I think, when you look at having 2 municipalities separated by a river, it probably makes sense long-term to integrate our services. And we ought to work with Wilkesboro to go to the UNC School of Government and commission that study and try to get that study done within the next couple of years. And we can then look at what the costs will be, what the benefits will be, what's in our interest, and then, as these other gentlemen have said, we can then take that information to the people and let the people decide what's in our best interest. But, I haven't made up my mind on that either. I'm open to, the eventual merging of the 2 towns, but I also don't want us to see that as the silver bullet that solves everything. When you look at some of the big challenges that we have, like the opioid crisis or the lack of good paying jobs, integrating our services will help us grow our tax base. It might make services more efficient. It'll help us compete and get larger grant funding, but it's not going to solve a number of those other big challenges. And so I don't want folks to think that there's one good thing that we can do and then that's everything else. We need not just one good idea, we need 100 good ideas. And so I want folks to be feeling like they have a stake in this and that they can offer something that we can work on too. This is a part of that conversation, but we need to be thinking about the number of things that we can do together to help both communities thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. That is our final question. Now we move to the closing remarks. Again, we will start back in the random alphabetical order that we had earlier. And the first closing remark for 2 minutes is Mr. Hauser. Mr. Hauser, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Dave. In closing, I'd like to simply say I'm your best choice for mayor of North Wilkesboro. I'm fully retired. I have the time, the energy, and desire it will take to do a good job for this town. I'm not an attorney, nor am I an aspiring politician. I've never worked for the government. My daughters walked me the billboard over here. Other than that, I have not accepted nor solicited for any campaign funds. Therefore, I am beholden to no one. I've been a businessman and spent more than 4 decades, as I said before, traveling the U.S. and Canada. I still know how to build a team, motivate, mentor, and encourage others. The mayor, town commissioners, town manager, members of staff must all work together better and communicate with each other better to help the town improve. And these improvements should benefit everyone. I want to make North Wilkesboro the best place possible for my family and for your family. I have no further ambitions beyond serving as mayor of North Wilkesboro. I plan on staying right here and keeping my eye on this town and this town only. In my former career, I worked with and trained many men and women, and I told every one of them to always tell the truth, no matter how difficult it could be, and to always underpromise and over-deliver, and also never make a promise you can't keep. I believed in those words then, and even more so now. I've always been an honest and a hardworking man. If I'm elected, I'll promise you that I'll put in the time and the effort required to be a good mayor for the town of North Wilkesboro and all its citizens, and the town will be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hauser. Mr. Johnson, 2 minutes, your closing statement.
Thank you, Dane. I would just love to say that as far as the position as mayor of the town of North Wilkesboro, I've dedicated 30 years of my life being a public servant. I don't consider myself anything but a public servant. It's in that oath of office that you take, that you serve the public. I've done my due diligence over the past 30 years that I've been involved to be that kind of a person. I promise you, as the mayor, and when re-elected, I'll continue to do that and serve the people of this town and the county in a way that would be a blessing to each and every one, would be a blessing to the town. And I look forward to continue working with our planning and zoning board, the other department heads. We've got some of the best employees that I put them up against any. So with that being said, I just want to continue to do the job that I've done for the past 30 years, being a public servant and serving the town of North Wilkesboro, working with Wilkesboro and the county to make this a better place to live and a better place for jobs and everything that's been said here this evening. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cooper, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. You know, I thank you to everybody who came out tonight and who participated in this program. Before you go home tonight, I want you to think about what is at stake in this election. Tonight, the poverty rate in North Wilkesboro is around 30%. The child poverty rate is around 40%. Median household income is less than $25,000 a year. That's the status quo. Now, I think we can do better. I think you do too. That's why you're here tonight. I think we need a plan for how we take on these issues. I think that we need to update our comprehensive plan and put a price tag on the things that we want to do and go to Raleigh and Washington, D.C. and Golden Leaf and Z. Smith Reynolds and find the funding to do these things. But I also think that we need to feel good about who we are as a community. When you look at the "We Want You Back" signs, it's about feeling pride and hope again, and bringing things back and doing new things too. You know, I remember when Mom retired last year, she was the oldest retail store left on Main Street, 36 years. I remember the beginning of that store, my earliest memories when I first started walking. I remember when those storefronts throughout town were full. I remember when the streets were full. I think they can be again. That's why I'm running for mayor, and I think that we need a plan to fill those streets again. But the most important thing I can do is to try to get other people to feel that way too. We got knocked down in North Wilkesboro. It's time to get back up. It's time to start competing and winning again in this economy. It's time to fight back. It's time to encourage young people to make this their home. It's time to make the investments that will do that. And the truth is, America is pulling for us. America was at its best when North Wilkesboro was at our best. And we have a responsibility to do our part to rebuild this country from the bottom up in one small town. North Wilkesboro has a proud history. We get to write the next chapter, which is our comeback story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Hamlin, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here. First time to ever serve and want to serve as the office of the mayor. But I will promise you, as serving as the office of the mayor, I'll be in the mayor's office 40 hours a week, or I'll be out on the streets talking to the business owners and the people. Be open door policy. You can come in and see me anytime. And that's the way I feel about that. This running for this office, and I'll say it again, is for the people of the town of North Wilkesboro. North Wilkesboro will always exist, but if we don't make the great changes to bring good paying jobs in the town of North Wilkesboro, it'll be no growth. It will be so slow you won't even recognize it. So that is running for the office of mayor. That's what I intend to do. And I would say that one other thing, and you can just stop and think about it, there are certain groups that are blessed in this town, that live in this town, that had an opportunity to work for Lowe's companies and retire with benefits, to work for the town of North Wilkesboro and retire and have benefits, work for the State Department over here and you have benefits, for the county. What about the other 80%? And we talked about drugs. People get depressed and they do things that they normally wouldn't do. And when you can't feed your family, you can't get a job, that's exactly what so many people turn to. Without good paying jobs in the town of North Wilkesboro, we'll see no growth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. And that concludes our forum for the North Wilkesboro mayoral candidates. Let's give these gentlemen a hand. We are set to begin the forum for the North Wilkesboro Commissioners at 7:30. That'll give us a few minutes here to brush up and readjust, and we'll try to start that on time.
Well, the house is put on them girls. How you doing?
Good.
He's a videographer here.
Yeah.
The live
Great
streamer.
job.
Live streamer.
He should be missing people. The ability of video.
Oh, we don't want to see it again.
Yeah.
Once is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Pretty long break.
Yeah, this is great. I know. I'll forget it all.
I don't know why it moved along faster than it was supposed to.
I think so.
Where did we get off?
Oh, I think
Oh,
Or just some of it didn't take their full time.
exactly. That was the whole thing. No complaints.
I don't know. Well, this one didn't take as long because we allowed for 4 candidates.
Yep.
You got your own stuff.
Yeah. Very good. Pleased with it. Absolutely. I think so. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Let's see if we get done. We're supposed to get done.
Yeah.
Look like we're about to get ready.
I hope he breaks some of this down afterwards. That won't be hard though. Yep.
What I'm going to try to do is take each question. We're going to do the answers for it, kind of like we do the written responses. Just do a series like that. So, yeah. I forgot to put my mask on for a long time.
Oh, well. ladies, sir. All right. You're doing good. Now you're going to write about the Wilkesboro because he can't be executive. That's exactly right. That's right. We'll have to.
Anytime something comes up out of Nelly, he's gonna do that part.
Exactly. That's right. I'm very intrigued by all the quite some content. Yeah. We had some good fodder, hadn't we? Yeah. Enjoyed it.
There's some diverse views too. I'll be honest with you. We just have to appeal for questions. We got very few from Wilkesboro. We got a pretty good number from North Wilkesboro. And they were all
It's every time I go and have home therapy, they always list me on what they did the prior. And, I had taken those exercises through but that's all I do. So back yesterday, and I said, so would you recommend that I just continue these whenever I feel like I need to? So that was certainly help expedite the company. First thing I do is what I concentrate on is racing like that.
You graduated when you could do that.
Oh, yeah.
You took pretty intensive therapy.
I didn't have a full shoulder.
I know, because you're doing a lot of therapy.
I'm on my 6th week of therapy.
So he won't be playing pickleball.
You will eventually.
Yeah, that's right.
I
was trying to tell you that we had, the last we had with questions were all so overwhelmingly about the traffic.
Okay. So the last one is
The burning issues.
Well, you know, I confess that we've taken a very scientific approach to it, which I think you need to do. You want to make sure that the good points work. But I think we probably should have listened a little bit.
I mean, I think the
And we kind of lost moral authority, so to speak. And so now I want to bring people on the phone and hear what they have to say and get their feedback. And couple that with our data to find the solution. Yeah.
Whatever.
Right.
I would like to have a lot of answers.
Yeah. Well, you know, last week I had my first coffee with the town manager, and one of the ladies who's been involved in traffic thing came, and her first question was, she lives on 6th Street, the first question was, are you done? And I said, no, not done. So I think that was the answer to it. You're right.
Would a bypass help that?
I think so, yeah.
And that's all to do.
Well, you know, I think the other thing that would help,
Honestly.
even if we take 2nd Street, 2nd Street's not a great option. You gotta go weed through where the pool is and stuff down there. So really, I almost think you wouldn't need a bypass. You just extended 2nd Street around the curve here.
You know, there's something like that on the books too.
It's way off that. The bypass is
But I mean, there's something about extending loop, go more out.
yeah, they need to do that. And then while they're at it, they can improve some of the drainage and stuff over here on Wilkesboro. Boulevard where it always spreads. But yeah, I think that if you give people an alternate route that works, they won't use the route. Yes, sir.
I saw you had a device.
Yep. It can, yep. It's called an owl. Sorry? You know, it's a good cheap option. I know that if you outfit your whole room with, a camera at each corner, that focuses in on the person that's talking. That's 10th about stop. That one's like even out and move his head. The sound is its weakness. And it picks up the sound. It's really for conference rooms. Like it would work great in a conference room. Our room is about as big as it can work. You know, you can ask these guys. We were having the meeting in Stone Center, and we were using it. It was really hard to hear because people were spread out. And so that's its weakness. But I keep hearing that they're going to come out with, you know, microphones that you can pair to it. I think once they do that, it'll be perfect for us.
Well, is there any benefit to having closed space in the middle of the park and maybe that way when they continue?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get ready to get started here. Got a couple of minutes to go. If our Wilkesboro Commissioner candidates will come forward, Mr. Church, Mr. Day, Mr. Johnston.
See you. Hope you're feeling better. See y'all. This last one? 3? Yes, sir. That'll wrap it up. All right. See you later. Our YouTube, where will it be? YouTube. Our YouTube page is Wilkes Journal-Patriot News.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. The next session for the North Wilkesboro Commissioner candidates, I have been asked to notify you that in case you're interested, later on, you can go to the Wilkes Journal-Patriot News website and find the YouTube channel, and you can watch the night's proceedings there on the World Wide Web. So somewhere over in Bangladesh, you're probably trying to figure out where North Wilkesboro is. So, but you can watch that on the web and be able to rehash tonight's comments and answers that each candidate gave for each office. I think that's a pretty good thing. We appreciate you doing that. And we also appreciate the Journal-Patriot for putting this on and having enough care and concern about the community to bring these news events out so that you can hear and make an informed decision on the candidates of who you are being asked to vote for. So that's a good thing. So we appreciate the Journal-Patriot to let the management know that. It is 7:30 now. We'll begin our time. Again, we use the same format that we've used with the other two forums. Remember that each candidate will start in alphabetical order and then rotate down from that. Each candidate will be asked a series of 5 questions, the same question for each candidate. We will begin with an opening statement of 2 minutes, and then each question will be asked. They also have an opportunity for 2 minutes to respond to that. Ms. Prevette has graciously donated her time tonight to keep the time clock for us, and she will keep the clock. She has a 30-second poster over there that will let you know if you have 30 seconds out of your 2 minutes left. And then if you continue to go, she will ring that obnoxious cowbell and let you know that you're over time.
So what you're saying, we need to find out what the cowbell sounds like.
The cowbell will be, now you need to ask no more. There it is. Okay, so we'll go through and each candidate will have a 2-minute opening statement, 2 minutes to answer each question, and then a 2-minute closing statement for this forum. I hope that's clear enough for you ladies and gentlemen. So we will go ahead and get started. Our opening questions begin with Mr. Church. You have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Otis Wayne Church. I grew up in Wilkes County. I'm running for Commissioner of North Wilkesboro. I left North Wilkesboro to serve in the United States Air Force, following my career in textile manufacturing. My wife, Joanne Parson Church, and I have made North Wilkesboro our home since 1992. After retiring from local textile manufacturer, we started a new venture. Together we own a small business, a baby celebration in downtown North Wilkesboro. As an active member of the community, I have served on Downtown Historical Board, Partnership Board, and I'm President and Chairman of the North Wilkesboro Planning Board. While on the Planning Board, we have updated the town of North Wilkesboro zoning ordinance to meet the state standards. We also established a non-residential zoning ordinance. With the new code and guidelines, our goal is to update existing buildings to make our town more desirable, a place to establish business and live. As a member of the North Wilkesboro Lions Club, I also feel strongly to serve the community and help the people in the community. I was also the president of the North Wilkesboro Lions Club. I am running for city commissioner because I see a great potential in North Wilkesboro to grow and attract business. Our town has unfulfilled promises and unfinished projects that are standing in the way of progress. My goal is to work for you in the town and our community to grow in our business. And other small towns have done it, so can we. It's time for change, it's time for action.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Our next opening statement will be Ms. Day. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I am Angela Day. I'm currently the sitting North Wilkesboro Commissioner, and I'm running for my 2nd term. It has been an honor to be your commissioner over the past 4 years. I have met wonderful people of North Wilkesboro. My heart is just full of how many good things we have here and what is taking place here in even today in our elections. As I am also a downtown business owner, I have Ivy Ridge Traditions. It's located on 813 Main Street. I have been there 22 years, long time, and I have enjoyed every second of it. During that 22 years, I've also been a real estate agent in the last 7 years, and it really gives me a view of the real estate world and housing that a lot of people really are not aware of. I have also worked to do diligently for the town as a planning board member prior to my being a town commissioner. I believe I served 2 terms, and I am a 2-term downtown North Wilkesboro partnership president. And of course, at that time, it would have been a different saying, but as the downtown partnership president, did twice. As well as being a commissioner, I've done those things as well. And I have been thrilled to attend the North Carolina Main Street program and represented North Wilkesboro. And that's something I want to talk to you guys about because it's something you too can volunteer for as to attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Mr. Johnson, you have your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you, sir. I'm Joe Johnston, and I'm running for town commissioner again. Why? Because like you, I expect more. I served the people of North Wilkesboro as a commissioner from 2013 to 2019. When I left office, I challenged the incoming board and mayor to be vigilant in maintaining what we have and to be thoughtful and insightful in adding to our future. Then the pandemic hit. We slowed down as our government asked us, and we should have. But we did not need to stop. We stopped making plans, we lost some direction, and I'm ready now to help reset our goals and priorities. A little information about me. I grew up in North Wilkesboro. I went to elementary school at what is now Benton Hall. I played football at Memorial Park for Wilkes Central High School. I now live in downtown. I have for 15 years. I make furniture in North Wilkesboro. I'm third generation furniture maker. My grandfather's first job off the farm, off Old 60, was as water boy for a factory that sits right where we are right now. It was called the Turner White Casket Company. I am a leader, a manager, a planner, a cheerleader, a dreamer, and a proven difference maker. I'm for a strong, vibrant, and clean downtown, appealing and valued stores and upscale restaurants. I want North Wilkesboro to become a destination settlement for those who want to live and play here. Together, this does not have to be a dream. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll begin our opening questions, and the first respondent will be Ms. Day. Okay. Ms. Day, the first question. What should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
You know, economic development comes in different ways. Shopping downtown, visiting the vendors downtown, shopping, that is economic development. Bringing people with our billboards, with our tourism director, bringing people into town with our music, all of those things are economic development because they go up there and they spend money at our town. And that is something people don't even usually consider that. Another way of economic development is we work with businesses to provide incentive packages. So, you know, it's nice we've worked together as well with the EDC, and I was so proud of the EDC and our COVID-19 relief program for small businesses. As I was in the pandemic in a small business many days by myself, and what I found was that we had one business during the pandemic that I noted, now of course there might be more, that had closed the doors that was on Main Street. We were able to offer funding to those businesses. I believe it was $500 every month. That's enough to pay your power bill. It's enough to pay your electricity. If you're in dire need, we did that. And not only did we didn't do it alone. Wilkesboro participated in it and the county participated in it also, and I'm very proud of that project.
Thank you, Ms. Day. So much humidity here, my papers are sticking together. Mr. Johnson, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
Economic development is different things to different people. I don't think economic development is bringing a big factory here. I have trouble hiring people now in my furniture factory. What we need to do is to build our town up again. And to do that, I would suggest that the town hire a CEO, a Chief Energizing Officer, to help the town manager and the board make the contacts, the plans, the schedule, and building a future. No one is doing that. This person should be someone to make the contacts with developers such as owners of Block 46 behind us, the old American Roof complex that my family founded. Someone who can set up meetings with developers who might help us with housing, the #1 economic need in town. Someone to make the relationships with our neighbors in Wilkesboro and the county to identify and agree on common goals. Someone to find festival organizers that can find a 2-day home in our city streets, once in the spring and once in the fall. Someone who might lure the Walmart to our Block 46 or Midtown locations. Someone who will demand that our streets and neighborhoods and ballparks are clean and safe. Someone who will walk and talk the streets and neighborhoods. Someone who would sell our town to visitors as a great place to live, work, and play.
Thank you, Johnson. Mr. Church, what should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to help bring about economic development, including revitalization of downtown North Wilkesboro?
Thank you, Dean. I think one of the things we really need to do is create small vineyards for downtown North Wilkesboro. Not put everything down here, bring it up here. To have it down here, we don't get the traffic up on Main Street. So we need events up on the street where we can get the people in the foot traffic in the stores. Right now, that's not happening. We got broadband in North Wilkesboro, but we need stronger broadband. We need an Instagram account, somebody in the town to establish the Instagram, because that's the millennials use it now. So we need that established, someone downtown to run that. I was really excited today. I visited down Old Millie Square where this guy's putting his finger in. And man, I tell you what, that's really gonna be nice when he gets done. And I went down there and talked to him. He took me on a tour, what he's gonna do. And I tell you, I've been to one in Louisiana where my grandbabies live. And it is fantastic. And I really like it. He said he hoped to have phase 1 done, which will be the trampoline, the end of October.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Church. Question number 2, and we'll begin with Mr. Johnston. Mr. Johnston, a study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for-sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address these needs, both within and outside the town limits?
You know, housing is a big issue. North Wilkesboro is full of rental properties that are within a mile of the main street downtown. This is the way a lot of people do business and have an income, is by renting out houses. And a few people own a lot of them. I'm not saying that's bad, but sometimes the rental homes don't take care of their own homes as well as somebody who owns the home. I think that's the problem. Housing coincides with economic development. You know, when I was on the town board, we inherited the old Roselli's building on Main Street and the one right next to it. And also the Priester building across the street was for sale. We tried helping out by investing in those buildings to the tune of about $275,000. And we ended up selling them at auction for a fraction of that. Now they still sit empty. So what I'm trying to say is it's hard to force the issue in housing. You have to let the supply and demand take over and work itself out. So in doing that, there's not a lot of forced housing that we can do. I say bring in somebody to help us with economic development, as I mentioned earlier, to build up the spirit and the inspiration of the town so people will want to come here and live and invest in.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Church, a study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for-sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address these needs, both within and outside the town limits?
There is a shortage. That's the #1 problem in North Wilkesboro, is affordable housing for retirees and young millennials that rental property. We need to work with Wilkes Economic Development Corporation to find an investor who is interested in building small affordable housing in our town. The North Wilkesboro has land available for development. Let's use this land to a good purpose and develop it. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Church. study earlier this year identified a severe shortage of both rental and for sale housing at virtually every price level in Wilkes County. What should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address these needs both within and outside the town limits?
You know, housing is a double-edged sword. We want people to come downtown and live in the second stories. We want people to come to North Wilkesboro and live in beautiful homes that we have in neighborhoods. But yet then you have people who can't afford to pay their rentals. One thing I'd like to see happen is, let me step back. First of all, for people in, I want us to focus on additional multifamily residential within the North Wilkesboro city limits. And I'm willing to go outside the close proximity of those city limits. If there's housing available, then North Wilkesboro needs to be a part of making that happen for people. So if we can do this, FHA loans are available for financing duplexes and multifamily homes are available. If you have four, say, apartments together, duplexes, four together, if you as the owner live in one, then in one of the multifamily properties, then they, the owner, may be eligible to finance through the Federal Housing Administration a loan. And these loans are paid back by the government and can be used for properties that are the 4-unit rentals. So we need to make our own properties. We need to look at who can develop and put together properties, much like our Sparta Springs. Where people can go based on their income and have a home to sleep in at night.
Thank you, Ms. Day. We'll move on to question number 3, and our first candidate is Mr. Church. Mr. Church, what is most lacking in North Wilkesboro in terms of quality of life offerings, and what, if anything, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address this?
Thank you, Danny. When people come to town and start looking for something, the first thing they're looking for is a clean and progressive modern town. They're looking for good schools, a safe environment, police and fire protection, variety of business, workforce development, which can be trained at the Wilkes Community College, and a clean, modern recreation area, and a variety of restaurants. North Wilkesboro has some of these items, what people are looking for visiting. However, we need to improve the appearance of the streets and many of the buildings. We passed a non-residential code downtown which needs to be strictly enforced and to have people to upgrade their buildings to make the town more desirable in appearance. Our parks and recreations, they need a facelift. And this non-resident code needs to be strictly enforced. And the uniform codes between the two towns are the same now as they were. They both comply with the state.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Ms. Day, what is most lacking in North Wilkesboro in terms of quality of life homes, and what, if anything, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address this?
As I talked about that double-edged sword, the thing that is actually a positive thing is that we need to people are coming to live here, and we can talk about not having housing. We got to work on that. That is not something to put to the side. But we also need additional housing for families. And so I see that all the time. I'm in the shop. People, do you all remember we were called the Foothills? And I guess we still are the Foothills. But the people coming into North Wilkesboro to live here, to shop here, and I'm saying around our surrounding area, it doesn't have to be right within our city limits. They're here because they think this is the mountains. This is the mountains for them. I have said in meetings before, and people have said, we are the Foothills, but we are not to the people coming into this community. So with that in mind, we can need to market North Wilkesboro as the place to be, to bike ride. We know that bike trails are at the lake, but it's a jump to the lake. To go, people here buy houses here, they go to Boone, they go to Charlotte, they go to Blowing Rock, because we are in the middle of those towns, those cities where people want to be, they just don't want to live there all the time. So our people can, we can build a place here outside of the city limits with Wilkesboro, come together. The one thing I'd like to see that builds this is to put our marketing on one billboard or one voice. And that is not very hard to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Mr. Johnston, what is most lacking in North Wilkesboro in terms of quality of life offerings, and what, if anything, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do to address this?
What are the haves that we have? We have a fine hospital. We have a great Brushy Mountain Apple Festival. We have 2 rivers. We have a greenway. We have many, many churches, religious foundations. And we have a summer music series. What we don't have is we don't have a hotel. We don't have a downtown grocery store. We don't have a spring street festival. We don't have an amphitheater really for outdoor that is in a much prettier setting than this. We still don't have a marketplace mural. We have Benton Hall, it could be a town auditorium. And we need upscale restaurants. We don't have many of those. One of the best ones we had closed on Main Street. We need more boutique stores. I'd like to see a billboard with a public calendar of events so people that drive by can see what's going on. There's many things we can do to increase the quality of life. I've just mentioned a few of them. And if we had somebody in that economic liaison person I talked about earlier, we would probably move and find the right people to help us get those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Go to question 4, and the first respondent will be Ms. Day. Ms. Day, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do anything beyond steps already taken to address excessive traffic and speeding vehicles in residential areas north of downtown North Wilkesboro? Steps already taken include speed limit signage, reducing travel lane width, and prohibiting trucks.
That is the discussion on the town board and within town staff of the year almost, is a traffic calming. I am very supportive of traffic calming. I have some notes here. I've seen firsthand, I have gone out and visited with citizens and sat on their porches and watched people buzz through the stop sign. And I don't mean stop, I mean buzz through. And so I know firsthand the 6th Street, the 8th Street, and the 8th Street and 6th Street concerns. I've heard it and I've seen it. And the biggest issue is actually, you add Main Street to that too. Being on Main Street daily, and I'm sure Otis and other people who work on Main Street would realize there's speeding there too, speeding problems. And I am a champion of speed bumps, I've found out. Now, I normally would not say that probably in a board meeting or even have thought about it in the past. But North Wilkesboro, we need to continue to use our radar signs because radar signs do not tie up police officers. And I appreciate that. And they also keep people a little bit slower at night. I'd like to see that extended, and I think probably it is at this point, because those signs are 24/7. Another method that doesn't require police officers to slow down traffic is the speed humps, and they are, I'm a champion of those at the moment until somebody can prove differently. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Mr. Johnston, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do anything beyond steps already taken to address excessive traffic and speeding vehicles in residential areas north of downtown North Wilkesboro? Steps already taken include speed limit signage, reducing travel lane width, and prohibiting big trucks.
I hate speed bumps. I hate 4-way stop signs. And I hate empty police cars sitting out there. But I understand it. You know, we have a police force that is 5 people short right now. We're not paying a competitive wage. That is one of our pass-through speeding problems. For a direct idea, you know, in the meeting the other night, it came up that we really need to keep 6th Street open, not inhibit it in any way, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And so imagine yourself coming from the Elks Lodge all the way up and down 6th Street and make that the one way through town that is free of anything. And then police it with the speed limits and write tickets. Write tickets. Then the rest of the intersections and through town, we'll jam them up with 4-way stop signs or whatever, because people will not go through there. Police need the teeth to write these tickets, as they have not been able to enforce the parking on Main Street. But our police department needs the teeth to be able to write those tickets, and people will not speed if they get plenty of tickets. That's my proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Church, should the North Wilkesboro Town Board do anything beyond steps already taken to address excessive traffic and speeding vehicles in residential areas north of downtown North Wilkesboro? Steps already taken include speed limit signage, reducing travel lane widths, and prohibiting big trucks.
Thank you, Dean. That's a good question. This problem has been going on for a long time. It's kept our board so tied up, they can't handle other issues in town that need to be handled. Every board meeting I went to in the last 3 or 4 months, that's all they talk about, speed. Well, I think that's good. But since Robbie Thornton has been named the new chief, I think things start to improve. He's got a good hand on it. We just need to give him some more police officers and give him some more money in the budget to pay these police officers. We lose them to other towns. We get them trained, then they go make another $10,000 a year because we can't afford to keep them here. We need to put more. I love stop signs. I think we ought to have a 4-way stop sign at every street that crosses. But that's me. I don't care too awful much about the speed bumps, but I think what we did in Trogdon, 9th Street at first, 6th Street, I'm sorry, is absolutely wonderful. I love it. But I think we need to put more. I think we need a stop sign at F Street, 6th Street. 4-way stop right there. That way the mayor can get out without getting run over. But I do think we need more speed, more signs. And this problem has been going on way too long. Studies after studies don't improve the problem. Action is what improves the problem. You put your policemen on the street, they will take care of the problem. All you got to do is give them the authority to do it, put them on the street. Now, studies will not get nothing stopped.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Moving to question number 5, our final question of the evening. We'll begin with Mr. Johnston. Mr. Johnston, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the 2 towns merging, and why?
Bridge the boroughs, bridge the boroughs. Like somebody said earlier, everybody thinks this is the Wilkesboros up here if you leave this town. I am for commissioning a grant-funded study to determine the feasibility and the possible cost savings, among other benefits, of combining the 2 boroughs. 2 small towns with 2 of everything. Some observations: the Kerr Scott water intake that ended last year after 20 years of haggling back and forth. Energy spent on competition, as in music, festivals, police departments. We need to merge that energy into one channeled effort. I feel the outside forces in the next 20 years will be more impactful for a 10,000 person town than two 5,000 people towns. Earlier, Russ Perry, the Wilkesboro town council person, said he's for getting a place for his children to come back to after school. A large town will do a lot to bring people back to this town. There are too many things, twos in this town, in these two boroughs. There's also too many egos. And that's something that a study will do to slow down and stop, because it'll prove that those egos are wrong. Yes, I'm for the merger of both those towns, for the good of our community 25 years down the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Church, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
Thank you, Dan. This has been a question that's been going on since I was in diapers. Are we gonna merge or not gonna merge? It doesn't really matter to me, but I think we should. But right now, we've got a good relation. We got departments in town and Wilkesboro that are loaning equipment to each other, and they're working together. But as Mr. Johnson said, the egos of the political leaders in the two towns, it's no great if they can't do it. They're afraid to do a study because they're afraid of the results coming from the study. And then they also say, who's gonna pay for the study? We get the study paid for. I'm for doing a study and start merging departments together. It's something that ain't gonna happen overnight. But I think the citizens of North Wilkesboro and Wilkesboro needs to have an opportunity to vote on, do we do it or do we not? It's like talking about something all your life, and then you gotta make a decision sometime. Do the study. And whatever the study shows, I'm 100% behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Ms. Day, do you support looking into combining any services now provided separately by Wilkesboro and North Wilkesboro, and why? And are you personally for or against the two towns merging, and why?
I will be honest, in the beginning, I was concerned about two towns merging. My child grew up here and went to North Wilkesboro Elementary School, and North Wilkesboro was my zip code, and I felt like I was very attached to that. Having been coming in to the town councils and the planning board and going up as a commissioner, I saw the need of sharing and how important sharing between the two towns are. You know, there's strength in relationships of North Wilkesboro and Wilkesboro. When we hired a new town manager with Wilson Hooper, who is here, it was August of 2019. And from beginning of that, I will be honest with you, Manager Hooper had a wonderful correspondence and relationship with Manager Ken Nolan, and which is nice. And I think that's made a huge, huge difference in those relationships. The town has agreed for water sharing. Everything I think is pretty much signed and done for most to go forward. And you know, there's still a very scary time of the potential of we could have drought because of the Rapids River. And if we had a really hot summer, you might turn on your tap in North Wilkesboro and not have water. So we have to take that very seriously, and it requires a partnership with Wilkesboro to complete it.
Thank you, Ms. Day. That concludes our questions. Now we'll go into closing statements. You have 2 minutes on your closing statement again, and we begin with Mr. Church.
Thank you, Dan. I'd like to thank Dan Maston for moderating this format tonight, and the Wilkes Journal-Patriot for sponsoring this format. I would like to thank everyone for attending the format tonight, and a special thank you for your support and input that citizens of the town has given to me while I was around campaigning from door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood. This has given me a good insight of what people in North Wilkesboro want to see done in the coming years, what they expect out of their town leaders. As a chairman of the planning board, I recognize our town has much work to do. We have a lot of potential here. We just need to focus on development. I'd like to continue this work as your commissioner, and remember to vote on November the 2nd. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Ms. Day, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. You know, I have said this a lot over my years, just past 4 years, is people come to pretty places. And as we've started our 4-way stop signs there at Michael's and Blair property, hopefully there will be time to continue that. There might not be funds now, but I don't want it to go off the radar. People like I said, people like towns that are unique and you can tour and have shops. And I'm going to cheerlead on our retail businesses because they survived the pandemic with the exception of a few and will continue to be open the whole time. And that's a really big deal. I want to continue to partner with private sector. Wouldn't it be nice for somebody else to pay money for something around here? I'm excited about that. Something like Block 46 open land area. I'd also like to continue to work with owners to revitalize their downtown buildings. And my last thing I'm going to say is what I think is very important, is when we have people come into North Wilkesboro looking for businesses, wanting to be here, is we need to make sure to ensure those businesses and entrepreneurs that there's what our resources are in the community. When people come in, you need to hold their hand. You need to say, we have this, we have this, and we have this. And when people bond with us as a town, when you walk them around and talk about it, they're going to be here. They might not be here in their homes, they'll be here shopping. They'll be here visiting the stores, visiting the restaurants. This will be a point where they can come back to, much like other small towns that are bringing in people from out of the area.
Thank you, Ms. Day. And Mr. Johnson, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. Since the town's stoppage due to the pandemic in the middle of last year, the board has done a lot of policy making and zoning ordinance hearings in their meetings. Their meetings are missing work sessions which were so strong in communication in the past. They have no juicy projects in the works. Our townspeople need juicy projects. Sure, they sold the Elks Club property and secured the needed funding to complete the much-needed water tank at the industrial park. They are finishing up on the disastrous splash pad at Smoot Park. I agree that they should and have put the public services building of the police and fire departments on the back burner. We can address those needs again when our population is on the rise. They are spiffing those buildings up, and I think you'll be able to see by the outside painting of the police department. At the request of the local government commission, the town has accumulated some cash in its fund balance, mostly through a non-spending focus. I think now is the time to reinvest some of those funds in our town. The job of town commissioner is significant. You're one of 5 people elected to manage town as a business. You need to secure ample, increasing revenue dollars to support expenses that you must control. It takes planning, insight, accountability, communication, and teamwork, and dreaming. I'm Joe Johnston, and I'm running for town commissioner again because I expect more. I need your vote starting October 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And that will conclude our North Wilkesboro Commissioner Forum tonight. Let's give these candidates a hand for representation. I'd like to again thank the Journal-Patriot for sponsoring this forum so that you can make an informed decision. We appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you for supporting these candidates by being here. Remember, you can find this on the Wilkes Journal-Patriot News webpage, YouTube channel. Thank you again. Y'all have a great night.